Welcome, everyone, guys. Welcome to episode 14 of Musical Reflections of a Slightly Conscious Being. I'm Sandra, a music artist that is on a journey towards consciousness. And like I said, today I'm going to share a song called World of My Own, and I'll be talking about discovering what you truly want. So, on the last episode, I continued the theme that I actually had started on episode 10, which was healthy relationships. And I shared the process I went through when I felt ready to experience a new romantic relationship and how essential that process was in creating the relationship I am right now. So, but what about the rest? And that's the theme for today. What about the rest? What about finding out what you truly want in terms of health, wealth, career, whatever? So how can you distinguish? And that's so important. How can you distinguish between what has been imposed by your family, society, or your own ego and overall conditioning from what's really in your heart and in your soul? And that's why I have these colors. You know, I've been receiving some people ask me what the colors mean, because I have different colors in the background depending on the theme I have. And something that I found out because on my searches for knowledge, because I do read a lot about in philosophy, and ever since I started therapy, I began interested in on the Eastern spirituality, belief systems, and all of that, because I do believe there's an old knowledge and there's a wisdom there that sometimes explains things that the Western society sometimes forgets, since the Western society is very focused on the mind and on logic, and not all things are explained by logic. So all these colors that I have in the background, actually they represent the chakras, the energetic centers that I believe have more to do with the theme I have on every stream. Okay, so for instance, today the color is pink. Pink is my it's one of my most powerful chakras. And that depends, each one of us has one chakra that is their own strength. The one that is more developed, mine is the soul star, which is pink. And it's actually, it's one chakra that is not in your body. Some chakras are in, seven of the chakras are in your body. The soul star is right over here, is the first one that is out of the body, and is actually the chakra responsible for uncovering your connection to your sacred mission on this planet, on Earth. So one thing that I always had very sure was what I wanted to do ever since I was a kid. And I cannot explain. I always knew I wanted to be a singer. It was always something that it was. So that's my strong point. I always knew. And I know that's not true for many of you. It doesn't have to be. Okay, you can always find about that later. It didn't help me to know what my dream was. I knew my dream when I was a kid, but then as a teenager and as my ego developed and my rational mind took over, I stopped believing in my dream, even though it was always there. So it was always my strong point, because it always helped me. I always knew. There was never a question inside of me once when I was a kid, but it still happened that for many years in my life, I was lost in the process, and I was lost in the logical mind, and believing what other people were telling me, what society was telling me, that it was a matter of luck, it was impossible, it was not a reliable career, and I should have my feet on the earth, and I should find for something more reliable and things like that, which basically just means that no matter how strong your main chakra may be, you are still subject to conditioning, you are still subject to doubts, and of course you still have to work on it. Okay, it just means that it's your strongest point, and it's different from each and all of us. Each one of us has a stronger point, and that's what makes I do feel that's what makes this all more interesting, because each human being is so unique and so different, and each one of us has its unique strong points, so we can complement each other and teach each other. So what happens, and this is also what happened through many years in my life, it still happens, it's still a process, it's something that I'm still learning, is that we tend to focus in what we want or not want from the world around us, right? For many years, I was stuck on this pattern of complaining and focusing on problems. And the thing is, when you're focusing on problems, you can't see the solutions. That happens a lot. So it's all a matter of changing your way of thinking. And this doesn't happen overnight. This is a process. It's a learning process, like everything in life. It's a learning process, just like learning an instrument. And I'm a musician, so learning an instrument is something that requires a lot of dedication, a lot of time, right? It doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes you feel like quitting. Many times you feel like quitting because you are not evolving at the pace you would like to. And that's totally okay. That's part of the process. And with these things, it's basically exactly the same thing. You have to reteach yourself and undo all these patterns. It's even worse than learning an instrument. It's like you learn to play an instrument in the totally wrong way. And then you have to relearn. So you have to forget what you learned behind because you were conditioned into thinking in a certain way. And you have to relearn in a totally different way. That makes it even worse, actually. Worse in the case it's more difficult. It's not impossible, though. It's possible. It's totally possible. But it takes more time and patience with yourself. I've had enough from rules, just want a world of my own. I used to be a nice girl, this world always adored me. Being so well behaved, doing what I was told to, but fuck that just ain't me. Being so obsolete, feeling so incomplete, always full of shit. Well, now you'll see this is a real me. If you don't like it, I don't care anymore. I've had enough of rules, just want a world of my own. Without fake misery, without the war inside and outside me. Don't want to spend the rest of my life questioning where will I be tomorrow. There's no more room to sorrow. I can't even close my eyes, I can't even rest in peace. I'm tired to try to please you, being your adorable little girl. I will leave all this world behind, I need my room to breathe. I'd rather be all by myself, now who makes the rules is me and no one else. I've had enough of rules, just want a world of my own. Without fake misery, without the war inside and outside me. Don't want to spend the rest of my life doing just what I'm told to. From now on it will be only me. There is no more room for sorrow. Welcome again, guys, to episode 14 of Musical Reflections of a Slightly Conscious Being. I'm Sandra, a music artist that is on a journey towards consciousness, and I just shared my song World of My Own, and I'll be talking about discovering what you truly want in life, of course. So let's start with the lyrics. And the lyrics are pretty much straightforward. I will talk a bit about the story, about the situation I was in when I wrote this song after I tell you the lyrics. So here we go. I've had enough from rules, just want a world of my own. I used to be a nice girl. This world always adored me. Being so well being so well behaved, doing what I was told to, but fuck, that just ain't me. And you guys heard nothing. This is non-explicit. Being so obsolete, feeling so incomplete, always full of... I cannot say it. Oh, hell no, you will see. This is the real me. If you don't like it, I don't care anymore. I've had enough of rules, just want a world of my own. Without fake misery, without the war inside and outside me. Don't want to spend the rest of my life questioning where will I be tomorrow. For now on, I'll just do what I feel. There is no more room for sorrow. I can't even close my eyes. I can't even rest in peace. I'm tired to try to please you being your adorable little girl. I will leave all this world behind. I need my room to breathe. I'd rather be all by myself. Now who makes the rules is me and no one else. I've had enough of rules, just want a world of my own. Without fake misery, without the war inside and outside me. Don't want to spend the rest of my life doing just what I'm told to. For now on, it will be only me. There is no more room for sorrow. So, I wrote this song when I was having a really hard time relating with my parents. I started working right after high school, so but for 1 year, I kept living with my parents. So I was working, but still living with my parents, and I was bringing my paycheck home every month. We had a joint bank account, but I felt like I should have an active voice concerning how the money was being managed, since I was also bringing some money, right? Unfortunately, my parents and I couldn't see eye to eye on this. It was something that we could never achieve a point that we were happy. And after 1 year of me trying to reach a compromise, I felt it was time to just stop trying, because I was trying and I felt like we weren't getting anywhere. There were arguments, and so I just felt like, you know what, it's just time for me to, if I want to do things my way, I have to just leave this house and find a home for myself so I could have that control that I wanted over my finances and expenses. There were also other reasons as well. It's not as a simple story as I'm just posing it here, but money and money management was undoubtedly a big reason for me to wanting my independence and wanting to be by myself. And I left my parents' home when I was 19, 20. So yeah, really early. That was actually the first big turning point in my life. And it all started with a very simple realization that I was in a situation that was not acceptable for me, and the other parts involved weren't willing to listen or change ways. So there were other situations, different situations in my life when I saw myself on a similar pattern, situations that were like, they were acceptable for a while, but then they became unacceptable. So I like this situation and the situation that I talk about this song because I do feel it's very relatable. I do feel like it all happens like I was a child, right? And of course, my parents were in charge of most things like parents are supposed to do, right? But as I grew up, things changed, right? And I was no longer a child, I was working. And so I demanded some changes to accommodate my new role. And because on that moment, I was no longer a child, I was an adult, and I was claiming I wanted to be treated as an adult as well, but my parents weren't willing to reach a compromise with me. And so the only way out was out, basically. So, but it's understanding. I think it's relatable in understanding, because I do feel we all have a point that we grow up, like, and sometimes the transition is hard, because it has to be a transition not only for our parents, but also for ourselves, right? Some parents have a really hard time understanding when their child or their children are no longer children. And I see that in many, I see that on many of my friends and many people around me. I see sometimes they are treated like children. They are not seen as equal adults and responsible adults. And sometimes that happens because there was not this process, this separation process didn't happen, or it happened later in life. Of course, I start working very early in my life. And so I did this process very early in my life. Since now, many people go to college or university or whatever. So they study and they rely on their parents till a lot later in their lives. And so a process that before in later generations, in earlier generations, this process happened a lot earlier. Like my dad started working when he was 9 years old. And I think he was already bringing enough money at 11. So I started working when I was 17, but that was not normal in my generation. Most people from my generation start working when they are 25, 26. So the process happens later in life. And so these lines of when do a child becomes an adult, they become blurred. Something that, at 18, you become an adult officially, legally, but most 18 people are not responsible adults, right? So it's sometimes it's a hard process, but it's a process that each and every one of us had to go through. Like, yeah, right, growing up, and okay, now my parents are no longer my parents in the sense that they are not they are not responsible for my own life anymore. So it's a process that we all go through. And it's a situation that it's not acceptable anymore because we grow, because we change, right? Thing is, that's not the only time we change. That's not the only time we grow. And I saw this amazing sentence the other day that was like, we don't say trees get old, we say trees are growing, right? And I do feel people are like that. We are constantly growing, and we grow till we die, right? We are always growing. We are always learning. Yes, of course, there's a learning curve. And usually when we get older, there's a time that we start recessing and we stop learning because our mind no longer can keep up with us. Sometimes our body no longer can keep up. So that's a normal part of the process as well. But I do feel like in a level, we always grow. So it's just normal that we change and these situations happen, and also situations that were acceptable and things that we thought we wanted for a while in our lives, then we stop wanting them. And sometimes it's hard for us to understand when we stop wanting something that was all we know, or it was something that we knew for a very, very long time in our lives. I have to say this time in my life when I had to get out of my parents' home, because it wasn't friendly. It was a really hard process. My dad cut ties with me for some months. He stopped talking with me. So it wasn't peaceful. Even though I tried my best to be peaceful, it wasn't peaceful. And it was really hard for me, especially because growing up, I always looked up a lot to my dad, because I know, unfortunately, my mom suffers from bipolar disorder, and I disconnected from her ever since I was 8. So my dad became my parent figure, right? And having my parent figure mad at me, and cutting ties with me when I was going through a time that it was already so challenging, it was one of my biggest challenges in life, and it happened so early. Like I was only 19 or 20. I'm not even sure what age I was, but it was around that age, and it was really hard for me. but it was also a big learning experience, and it helped me grow. It helped me grow so much. So mentioning Eckhart Tolle, I don't know if you guys know Eckhart Tolle. He's a spiritual mentor, teacher. He has a lot of content online. I absolutely adore him. He has a fabulous sense of humor. And he's a fellow INFJ, so he has the same personality type as I do. If you're a fan of the 16 personalities, if you're not search online 16 personalities, you'll find out what it is. But basically, he has the same MBTI type as I do. And so he if you like the way I talk and the way I explain things, you will probably like him as well, because he has a similar way of, he has a great sense of humor. And he says something that I think it's absolutely fantastic. He says it that when you are in a situation that is uncomfortable, you have 3 ways of proceeding. You can either accept it, change it, or remove yourself from the situation. So you can accept it, and you should accept it. Like, imagine if there's something that there's nothing you can do about it. Imagine if there's nothing you can do about it. And so all you have to do is accept. Like, there's no point in complaining. There's no point in feeling bad or angry or whatever. Like, if there's nothing you can do about it, there's nothing you can do about it. Just accept it, okay? Or if you can change it, you should try to change it, right? You should do whatever you can to change it, or at least try to change it. But if you're not successful at changing it, and that happens sometimes because sometimes it's not all in your hands, you can always remove yourself from the situation, right? And again, if that's not possible, all you have to do is accept it. So it works. There's always one of these 3 case scenarios on every situation in your life. And that's what I eventually did on this occasion. And most recently, I'm talking about something that happened when I was 19, but that's also what I did just last year on my former relationship. I wasn't happy. I tried changing it. I finally realized that there was nothing more that I could do, so I removed myself from it. So, thing is, many of us, and I'm one of those people, we tend to stay sometimes in uncomfortable situations for too long because they were once acceptable. So the example of this song, like I said, it's easy to relate, right? Because we all have our issues with our parents. Like no one has a perfect relationship with our parents. We work at it, and it's possible to achieve a point that you are satisfied with the relationship you have with your parents. But there's always like this point or another that it's not perfectly fine-tuned. There's something that Eckhart Tolle also said, but it's not his quote. He was quoting another master, a Zen master or something. If you think you are so enlightened, go spend 2 weeks with your parents. And I think it's perfect. Yes, like if you think you are so well above the world, go spend 2 weeks with your parents, and then we'll see. And I think that's perfect, because it's hard, right? So it's an example. The example of the song, it's easy to understand. And it's many times a painful process, right? Working on the relationship with your parents. Exactly because of this, because they watched us grow, and sometimes they get stuck on their parenting roles, and they have a really, really hard time letting go and accepting when their parenting roles need shifting, because their children are no longer children. They are fellow adults, and they should be respected as adults. So the truth is, we're always growing and changing. And so this assessment of what we truly want and if we are okay on different situations needs sometimes some revisiting, because as we change, as we grow, many times we outgrow job situations, or we outgrow relationships, or we outgrow houses, Cars, addictions, that can happen too. We can outgrow relationship, financial problems, health problems, or sometimes we can actually go the other way around. Sometimes we create problems instead of solving them, and that's totally normal, and that happens sometimes. It's all part of life. Life doesn't go an ascending way. That's like the ideal way, but it's not always like that. It's ups and downs, and the downs are also part of the process. And I do feel sometimes we learn a lot more from the downs than we learn from the ups. So the downs are totally necessary, and we need to make mistakes so we can learn, so we can grow. It's all part of life, okay? But truth is, human beings evolve. And that's clear in every generation, right? We see like many old, every generation is different, and it's amazing to see how fast humanity is evolving. If you think about it, if you think in the last 100 years, how many things have changed, and I'm not talking about technology, I'm also talking about values, right? The way we live our lives is so much different from what our grandparents had, right? So, but the truth is, even though that happens, many old values are still revered as something to aspire to. So I'm talking, when I mention old values, I'm talking about, for instance, getting married for life, having a job for life, buying a house, having kids, saving for retirement. That's like, I'm not saying these are wrong or right values. I'm just saying these are old values. These are values that have been around for many, many generations, right? My question, and this is not a question of yes or no, it's something for you to reflect, is, do these values make sense today? Do they make sense to you, right? Because one thing that I remembered, when I was on my former relationship, and I was on that relationship for 16 years, and that's uncommon for my generation. It's something that it's uncommon because many people from my generation, they jump from relationship to relationship, and when things are not working out, they move along, they get out. So I know I was old-fashioned from my generation. But many times, when I mentioned that I was on that relationship, or that when I was still on the relationship, but I was unhappy, but I mentioned that I was on that relationship for 16 years, people would see that as a good thing. And they would think like, oh, wow, that's amazing. You are on a relationship for 16 years. And I thought, yeah, but I'm unhappy. So that's not that amazing. So I felt like sometimes people were focusing like, it's so great that you are on a long-term relationship, and they only see long-term relationships as a good thing. But truth is, if you are not happy, it's not a good thing. It wasn't a good thing for me. It was a necessary thing because, yeah, it was part of my growing process and my learning process. And I see that now for what it was. But I do feel sometimes we are so focused on the value of, oh, it's so great to find someone and living the happily ever after. Think, oh, if you are on a relationship for so long, you must really like this person and you must really be happy with this person. So we just assume these things that are not necessarily true. So that's my question for you. Like, do these values make sense nowadays? Right? Is this something to aspire to for everyone? Because sometimes we see these things as something that they should be aspired for everyone. Even having a relationship. Like, there's this goal. I saw the other day my uncle asking, my cousin has, she's a 5-year-old girl, and she's adorable. And my uncle was asking her, oh, do you have a boyfriend already? Like that's a goal, having a boyfriend. It's like, why does that have to be a goal, right? Not everyone. Maybe she won't even have a boyfriend. Maybe she will have a girlfriend. Maybe she won't have a relationship, and that's totally fine. Like, why forcing these things? And I know my uncle means no harm. He was just joking, but it was just an example, right? So I love talking. One thing that I absolutely love is talking to old people about this. because sometimes old people, they do have a lot of knowledge if you just let them talk. I love hearing stories by old people, but sometimes one thing that they do a lot is that they complain that younger generations are always looking for better, and they end up not dedicating enough time to appreciate what they already have. And this is actually a valuable reminder for sure. And I noticed this on many people from my generation. And I do feel it's on social media, and people are receiving so much information all at once. They sometimes have really hard time to concentrate in one piece of information at a time. Multitasking is like everybody's multitasking, and then they have a really hard time focusing on just one person. When the novelty goes away, they need to move on to the next person. So I do feel there's a truth here, and there's a valuable reminder here for sure. But truth is that the very same old people that say this, when asked about their biggest regrets, usually they mention something that they did not pursue for some reason. Being this something can be a relationship with someone else, can be a job opportunity, or moving to a different place. And ain't this a contradiction? Like, in one way, they are saying, younger generations don't commit. They are always looking for better. But then at the same time, their biggest regrets was not risking more, right? So I do feel like, as in everything in life, I do feel the answer is in the middle, like is finding the right balance for you. I do feel like when there's too much safety and comfort, your life becomes dull, and too much uncertainty and too much unreliability, and your life becomes unstructured. You don't have a safety net anymore. So I do feel you can apply this in every area of your life, relationships, career, health, wealth, anyway. I do feel it's always important to remember that it's your life, and there's not a universal balance. You can be a person that appreciates more stability in some areas in your life and more diversity in others, and there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to access what makes sense to you. And sometimes there's a time in your life that you feel that you need to be more comfortable, and there's other times that you feel like you want to risk more. And that's totally normal. It's sometimes we are always thinking that there's this end goal and this end pursuit, when life is not about the end, it's about the journey. And the same thing applies to everything in your life. There's no right formula, no right way of doing things. And you just have to test, and this is something that you have to do for yourself. Other people can give you advice, yes, and it's great, and I do feel like you should hear what other people have to say, but you should always ask yourself if that makes sense to you, okay? Because just because something is true for someone else, it doesn't mean that it's true for you. Okay, so I guess that's why I always feel I'm very fascinated by people that are out of the ordinary in some way. And over the last couple of years, I've had the opportunity to meet people that are out in ordinary of the ordinary in one way or another. People that defy the status quo, the unsaid rules. Like, for instance, I grew up in a family where, women. I have a lot of women in my family that dared not to get married or having kids. And this is in a society that values families, right? It's still an unsaid goal for everyone to get married and have kids. It's not imposed, but usually people ask, like, are you married? Do you have kids? Like, that's something that is important for everyone. And it doesn't have to be. And I also have in my family someone that decided to be a vegetarian. And I have some vegetarian friends. And I do feel like that's also so important, like taking a stand for yourself. I'm not a vegetarian, but I am reducing my the amount of meat that I eat and the type of meat that I eat. and I have some people also that are doing their best to be plastic free, or that means not buying things with plastic. I'm also trying. Last year I replaced my shampoo bottles with solid shampoo, and I'm absolutely loving it. It was a weird transition because you're not used to use a soap in your head, but once you do it, and once you start doing it and your hair gets used to it, it's actually really, really good. I like the way my hair is so right now, and the way it feels. It's very bright, it's very shiny. So but it's a challenge because you're doing something that it's out of the ordinary. You go to the supermarket and there are no solid shampoos, so you are doing something that is not the norm, is out of the ordinary, but it's something that feels good for you. So that's what matters, right? So I love, talking with people like this. And I've lately met some people that live off grid. So people that they produce their own electricity, they have their own water. So all of that. I have a friend who doesn't have a smartphone, doesn't have a cell phone because he's against cell phones. He only uses email and landlines. And it's like, it's not my choice. That's not my choice. But I feel it's fascinating that people are just like so sure of their values. Like they go against society and they are even inconvenienced by that. But that's okay because they are fulfilling their values. And I think that's so important. I do feel that people that defy the concept of normal and what's society rule, I do feel it takes guts to do so, right? So to go against what is silently imposed, and it also takes work. I noticed that, since I started trying to be plastic free, it takes a lot of work because I have to look for products that don't have plastic, because the norm is to have plastic everywhere. So it takes work, it takes dedication. Another thing that I did last year is to stop consuming alcohol. And it's amazing that ever since I stopped, I chose not to consume alcohol anymore. And then I'm constantly being challenged because people keep offering me alcohol. So even if it's just try. But are you sure you don't want to just try, just a sip? And I'm saying, but I don't want, even if it's just a sip, I don't want. And that's the thing, because people, like when you say I'm a vegetarian, people don't try to force meat on you. Well, at least most people. But if you say you don't consume alcohol, people still try to force alcohol on you. So it's kind of interesting in a contradiction, but it's because it's not that usual, right? But I do feel like when you do things like that, you are also setting an example for other people. You are telling other people that it's okay to defy rules, and it's okay to do your own thing, even if it's different from what everyone else is doing. And this is constantly changing because many of these changes I just did last year. So that's just the point. We are always growing, right? And as we grow, our needs and wants change as well. So, and that's normal. And I do feel right now people are so much more aware of these issues, and all society is evolving in such a faster pace that it's normal that if people are constantly changing, they will not be the chances of not being with the same person for the rest of their lives are bigger as well, right? Because we change and the other person can change as well. And of course, people can change together and people can grow together, and that happens. But sometimes people just also grow apart. And I do feel that happens a lot more than in older generations, because people in the past tend to settle and tend to accept things as steady for the rest of their lives a lot more easily than now. Now we want to challenge ourselves, and that can also be a good thing. It can be a bad thing if it's too much, but the key is in the balance, as everything. So you may call these people weird or strange, but these are the people that are slowly changing the world, if you think about it. Even in small gestures, I do feel, people that challenge the imposed rules. And you see that last century, you see black people doing that, and they are still doing it, fortunately, yes. And women, they start reclaiming their rights last century, still do. Climate activists are doing it, and I feel like I'm also doing it too, setting an example, like trying to go plastic free and doing all these small changes, and being aware of the way that where if I spend water, electricity, or other commodities. It's not a matter of saving money. Not only that, of course, that matters as well, but it's a matter of being responsible for the resources we have. And our responsibility as well, we pretty much are the dominant species of planet Earth. So we do have a responsibility here. So I do feel like all these small changes, they may seem small, but if everyone else were doing it, we would be on a better place. So I feel pretty happy with myself giving that example. And this is some examples of what I truly want in my life. And this is something that I've worked last year a lot, like discovering what really matters for me, what makes me feel happy with myself. And I do feel that those are the questions you should ask. What makes me feel proud of myself? What makes me feel happy about myself? And all these things that I'm mentioning are things that made me happier and made me feel, and I do feel like that's what I truly want. I do believe that's what we all truly want, right? We all truly want to experience happiness and being proud of ourselves. And these are just some small things that you can do so you can feel proud of yourself. Of course, you can value things that are totally different than mine, and that's totally okay. Okay? What matters is that you find things that make you happy and include that in your everyday life. Don't think about big gestures. They don't have to be big gestures. Of course, I've done big gestures last year. I went on a weekend and I went to grab. I participate in an action. I went to collect trash on the beach. That was a big thing, but it doesn't have to be big all the time. You can do even short and small actions every day, and be aware of those actions. Okay. And I do feel like that's what we should strive for, to do more about these small things that makes us happy with ourselves and makes us feel proud of the person that we are. Hope that makes sense, guys. Thank you so much for being here.